Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Ready for Rome webinar. My name is Shelley Ruel, and I'm the community manager here at ItaliaPass. I've lived in Rome now for about 23 years, and I'm joined by my colleague, Loriane Filon, who is our ItaliaPass Primo Italy Experience Specialist. And what that means is that she helps our ItaliaPass Primo members plan their vacations. And you'll be learning a little bit more about ItaliaPass as we go along and talk to you about our tips and strategies and information for visiting Rome. So we'll go ahead and get started. Oops. First of all, I wanted to give you a little bit of information about what is ItaliaPass, because I think a lot of you are probably here because you've purchased tickets with Italia Rail. So Italia Rail is part of a family of brands, the Italia brands, and since 1987, these brands, Italia Rail, Italia Tours, Italia Drive, and Italia Hotels, have worked with millions of tourists exploring Italy. So ItaliaPass comes in because our founder, the founder of Italia Rail, created ItaliaPass to help his customers have the best trip to Italy ever. And so we have two types of membership. We actually have a free community, and we also have a paid benefits membership program, which is known as Primo. Today in today's webinar, we're going to be covering these bullet points. First, we'll talk to you about when you arrive at Fiumicino Airport, since that's the way that most people get into the city, and how you can get into the city from the airport. We'll also give you a little bit of information about our ItaliaPass Lounge that's available at Rome's Termini Station. I'll give you some pointers and some tips about how to ride on public transport here in Rome, and tell you a little bit about eating out, menus, local customs, so that you feel ready to be in the restaurants and know kind of what the local customs are there. We'll also give you some information about how you can get a complimentary entry into the Colosseum and $100 off of a Rome or Vatican tour, how to avoid tourist traps, a few extra local tips, and then at the end of our presentation today, you'll have the chance to ask questions to us live through the chat functionality. So I'm going to turn it over to Loriane and let her tell you about how to get into the city from Fiumicino Airport.
Thank you. So hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us today. So now that you've landed at FCU Airport, you have a few options to get to the center of Rome. As you can see on the slides, they're all indicated in the terminal. The first option is to reach Roma Termini, which is the main train station in Rome, by train. And there are two types of trains that you can take. The first one is the Leonardo Express, which is a direct train to Termini Station, and it costs $16 on Italia Rail. And the second one is a regional or more local train that you can also take to get to Termini Station, and that you can take to get to the smaller stations in Rome, like Trastevere and Ostiense, and it's a little bit less. It's $10 on Italia Rail as well. And there are also taxis that you can take outside the terminal that have a fixed rate of 50 euros. I really suggest following the signs to the taxi stand and not going with anyone inside of the terminal offering taxi services. That's more so that you can make sure that you get into an official taxi and you get the fixed rate that I mentioned. Other options that we have to get to the center of Rome include taking a shuttle bus. And we do offer also private car transfers that take you straight to your accommodations in Rome instead of just the train station. And those you can book either on Italia Tours on the website or through your dedicated Italy Experience Specialist like myself, if you're a Primo member with us. Perfect. So now a question that we get often is if you should rent a car when you're visiting Italy. If you are going to be exploring some of the more remote areas, like Tuscany, for example, it can be a great option to rent a car, but I don't recommend doing so if you're only going to be visiting the major cities, so Florence, Venice, Rome, Milan, because the best way to navigate between these cities is to take the train. And most often, they also have very strict car traffic rules, and it can be tricky to get a permit to enter the city, to park, and to kind of operate a car within city walls. But if you do decide to rent a car, what you can do is you can go on our platform. It's called the Italia Drive, which you can see right here on the screen. And you would benefit from a $10 discount as a Primo member, which you can redeem after completing your booking and contacting us. Another great perk of your Italia Fast Primo membership is the access to our lounge, which is located in Roma Termini Station. If you have some free time before or after you're boarding a train or you're waiting for your hotel check-in, you can relax at the lounge. We offer free Wi-Fi, espresso refreshments, and free luggage storage during opening hours. Our lounge hosts can also answer any questions that you might have about your trip to Rome, your trip to Italy, and also your train tickets, your train time. And all you need to do is to book your complimentary visit ahead of time, so beforehand. And now I'll hand it over to Shelly. She'll give you some information on public transport within the city.
Okay, thanks. So in Rome, our public transport system is called ATAC. It's made up of 3 types of public transport. The 2 largest ones that you're going to encounter are the above ground buses and the underground subway, which is called the metro. That's short for Metropolitana. And there are also a couple of trams as well. The tickets are quite reasonably priced, especially compared to other large European cities. The tickets are €1.50 each, and they are time-limited tickets, so they go for 100 minutes. So it's not like a zone system like you find in other large European cities. It's a time-based system. There is one exception to that you should be aware of, however. Although they're good for 100 minutes total, from the time you first board your first whatever bus or metro car, they are only good for 1 metro ride within that time frame. So once you go into the metro, take the subway, and once you exit, that same ticket is no longer good to ride the subway again. However, if you still have time left and 100 minutes haven't passed yet, you can still use that ticket on the buses and on the trams. The tap and go system is really convenient. It's available in the subway turnstiles. It's available on some buses, but I wouldn't count on finding it in the buses. It's mainly in the subway system. So you can use a contactless payment method to get into the metro as your ticket, which is convenient because then you don't have to buy a ticket anywhere else at the machine or at a newsstand. You can simply take out your card, tap it as you enter the turnstile. You'll see the contactless symbol. And so you can use either a card or a contactless payment that you have on your smartphone and pass through the turnstile. And that, whatever payment method you use, if you were to be checked by an inspector, although to be honest, I've literally in my 23 years in Rome, I've never seen an inspector on the metro, and that's because you have to get past the turnstiles. Whereas on the buses, you board and you don't have to show your ticket to anyone. So you're more likely to encounter an inspector on the buses than you would on the underground. However, if you ever do encounter an inspector, you're just going to show them the contactless payment method that you use because that's the equivalent of your ticket. Oh, one thing before I move on, the tap and go system is 1 contactless payment method per passenger. So you can't use the same credit or debit card for 2 passengers. Each passenger needs their own payment method. Okay, so the next bullet point here talks about unlimited ride passes. If you're going to be in Rome for multiple days and you think you're going to be riding the public transport system enough to where it would be worth it to get a discount pass to have unlimited rides within a time limited period, such as 24 or 48 or 72 hours, those are also available. And I'm going to give you all the information about how to purchase those in a reference link that I'm going to send you in our community after this presentation. You're going to get an email, and I'm going to send you a link that's going to have all the information that I don't cover specifically here that I just refer to. Next, how to buy tickets or where if you're not going to use that contactless method, the tap and go. So there's machines in the subway systems. You won't find a lot of machines by the bus stops. So if you need to ride a bus, just stop by any tobacconist shop. It's easy to locate because they usually have a T over the door, or any of the newsstands. They're everywhere throughout the city, and you can simply buy a bus ticket there. One tip I want to give you if you are going to be riding public transport is there's a particular bus that's super convenient for tourists. It's bus 64, and it's convenient because it runs from the city's main train station Termini all the way across the historic center to the Vatican. Being that it's really convenient for tourists, though, it's also kind of a hot spot for pickpockets because they know that they're going to find a crowded bus with lots of tourists on it, especially in the high season, which we're in the middle of right now. So while I don't at all want to worry you about pickpockets because it's we do have petty crime here where it's not a violent crime city, but we do have petty crime. However, it's very easy to avoid pickpockets. And I can tell you that because, again, knock on wood, but in my 23 years here, I've never been pickpocketed. And the reason is that I'm very aware of my belongings. So if you have, like, ladies, if you have a purse, you have a crossbody bag, just kind of keep your hand on it. Men, if you're going around with a wallet, maybe keep it in your front pocket with your hand on it when you're in these really crowded areas, in particular Termini Station. And as long as you look like you know what you're doing, you know where you're going, and you're aware of your surroundings, I can assure you that you will be fine, because there are lots of easy targets who have like cameras hanging off of there, or like a bag hanging. I guess people use smartphones nowadays more, but like it used to be, you'd have a camera strap hanging off of your shoulder and like bags open. Just be very aware of what you've got on you, and they won't mess with you. Okay, so now on to the fun stuff about eating out, because I know that you're going to love and enjoy all the wonderful food that we have here in the city. First thing I want to tell you about is the time that we eat around here that you may not be aware of. We do eat a little bit later than, let's say, North America, or at least Canada and the United States. We tend to start eating lunch anywhere from 1 to 1:30 and dinner around 8 to 8:30. So that being said, it's not like you won't be able to get a meal outside of those times. However, the typical local restaurants generally don't open much earlier than that. So if you want to eat in some of the local places, you should expect to wait a little bit later than you might normally be used to. I wrote here check in quotes il conto. That's how you say the check in Italian. The reason I put this here is because culturally here in Italy, you're not going to necessarily get the check automatically. A lot of times in the United States, your wait person, your server might just leave the check after all the plates are delivered and say, I'm going to leave this here with you whenever you're ready. That doesn't happen here in Italy, because culturally, when Italians go out to eat, it's a time dedicated to spending quality time with their friends and family. And it's a courtesy not to put the check on the table unless it's asked for, because they don't want to impose on you and make you feel like you're being pushed out. So you're going to most likely 99% of the time, that check is not coming until you specifically ask for it. And so don't feel like they're forgetting about you. They're really not. They're actually trying to be courteous of your quality time with the people that you're there having dinner with. So simply ask. A lot of places are going to speak English as well, but it's also nice sometimes to try to use your Italian. So you can say il conto per favore, and then you can sound like a local when you're asking for your check. In terms of tipping, that's also something that a lot of American and Canadian tourists will ask about, is do we need to leave a tip? In the United States, a typical tip might be 20%. Here in Italy, we don't necessarily leave tips after we eat, because the wait staff is paid a full salary, so they don't work for tips. So don't feel uncomfortable by not leaving a tip. Most of the people I know here in Italy don't leave tips. The most you might see somebody leave, if they had a really great meal and want to be courteous, maybe one euro per person, something like that. If you're with a group, you might see everybody put down €1. But it's not necessary. So that's important to keep in mind, especially because if you run into a touristy trap kind of a restaurant, I would hate for them to try to pressure you into leaving a tip when that's not the local custom. Okay, so just a little primer on the menus. So we have two main types of restaurants here in Rome. We have the ristorante, but we also have a pizzeria, and they're not necessarily the same thing, because in a pizzeria, you might find that they only serve pizza and they don't serve pasta. Whereas in a restaurant, you're going to find, sometimes you'll find pizza, but I wouldn't count on it. So if you're looking for specifically a sit-down restaurant for pizza, then you're going to look for a pizzeria. In the restaurant, on the menu, you're going to see antipasto, which is like appetizers, primo and secondo, which are first course and second course. The primo are your pasta dishes. The secondo are your meat dishes. And you don't have to order everything. It's not like you have to order like this large course meal going from antipasto all the way through to dessert. You can pick and choose. If some people at your table want a pasta dish and other people don't want pasta, but they want like a steak or something like chicken or something like that, you can also tell the waiter or waitress to bring those all out together, that you're not going to order. They'll ask you, are you going to get a secondo? If the person getting the secondo wants to eat it with the pasta with the other people, that's perfectly fine. Just let them know. In the pizzeria, I invite you to try one of our delicious local specialties, which is called a supplì. There I've written fritti. Fritti means fried. It just means fried, actually, literally just means fried. But what it's referring to is fried appetizers. They love their fried appetizers in the pizza restaurants. It's a typical appetizer to eat before you eat your pizza. So the supplì is what you see in that photo in the bottom right. It's a fried rice ball. It's rice cooked in a ragu, so a tomato meat sauce, and they put a little ball of mozzarella in the middle, and then they deep fry it. So the mozzarella gets really melty, and so kind of when you open it, it kind of strings out. It's really delicious, and it's also street food. You can also find that in the next shop I'm going to tell you about, the Pizza al Taglio. In terms of toppings, I just wanted to mention that I did not know this when I moved here. You don't order the toppings that you want topping by topping on your pizza. Everyone gets an individual pizza, and the toppings are already kind of predetermined into groupings, and the pizzas have names. So like your standard cheese pizza is called a margherita. Other pizzas are going to have the different toppings listed, and you're going to order that pizza with all the toppings kind of preset on it. And they're individual pizzas, but don't worry, it's not like you're going to get a huge deep dish pizza and you have to consume all of that all by yourself. Here in Rome, our style of pizza is a very, very thin crust. It's like almost paper thin. It can be crunchy kind of on the outside crust and softer on the bottom. And it's usually cooked in a wood-fired oven. Now, the pizza al taglio, that means cut pizza. Those are your pizza shops you're going to find when you're walking around in the city. They're pizza behind glass cases. You just walk up to the counter, you choose the toppings that you want, the type of pizza that you want, and the server there is going to motion to you, probably gesture like, how much do you want? And then when you decide how much you want, they're going to weigh it, and then you'll pay for it by weight. So we don't sell, generally you're not going to find pizza by the slice, like a slice is €3. It's going to be by the weight. I would say a typical, like if you're looking, and it's like squares, so like 2 or 3 squares of pizza are going to run you anywhere between €5 and €10 per person at a Pizza al Taglio. And you can also get supplì there, and you can take this pizza to walk with. They'll wrap it up in a piece of like wax paper, and you can just walk down the street eating it. If you want to eat breakfast like a local, you can get a great deal on coffee here because, of course, our espresso is a daily staple. It's not considered a delicacy that's going to cost you 5, 6, 7 euros. An average espresso is running around anywhere from 110 to 150 euros. For breakfast, we like to take a cappuccino and a cornetto. The cappuccino is not served really hot. It's served kind of almost lukewarm because we take it standing up at the bar. It's not like it's super hot so you can walk around with it all day. So if you want it really hot, you're going to need to ask for that. The cornetto is like a croissant. But in the summer, I would encourage you to try a caffè freddo. Freddo just means cold. You can get caffè freddo, and they will serve you a cold coffee. Sometimes it's pre-sweetened, sometimes it's not. The important thing in a bar is you're going to pay first. You're going to go to the register, order everything you want, and then move over to the coffee counter where the barista is and order directly with the barista. You got to have sharp elbows if you're in a crowded cafe because you got to move your way up to the front and be like a local. Just get right up there and order your coffee. I have a couple of places that are in competition to be like the best espresso in Rome. Everyone has their favorite. I'm going to give those to you in the resources that I talked about at the end of this presentation. Next slide, I'm going to turn it back over to my colleague to tell you about how to get into these sites.
Perfect. So now that you have all the food and all of the transportation taken care of, you're going to want to see all the beautiful sites in Rome. So as a Primo member, you do get one free skip the line ticket of a $22 value. It gives you access to the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, and Palatine Hill. So we do also offer a guided tour of the Vatican, the Colosseum, to which we can credit that free ticket that I just mentioned, as well as walking tours of the rest of Rome. We also have beautiful food tours. If you go on our Italia tour website, you'll see all of them. I do recommend taking a look at our Rome Tour Pass if you're spending at least 2 full days in Rome. It includes 3 different tours, so the Vatican tour, complete Vatican tour, the Colosseum tour, and then the walking tour of the rest of Rome. As a Primo member with us, you get $100 off of your first tour booking and then 10% of any other tours that you book with us. You can book, as I said, these experiences on nataliatours.com, and you can always, if you're having trouble, email us and ask us any questions, and we'll be happy to help. Now I'll leave it to Shelly again to give you some local tips.
Okay, back to me to tell you how to avoid some tourist traps so you can be more like a local when you're here. So the first tip off to a really touristy restaurant is when there's pictures on the menu. Local restaurants do not put pictures on their menus. And also a tip off that you're going to see in the big touristy areas like down by the Colosseum or down by the Pantheon is there's going to be people standing out front holding menus trying to usher you inside. So like promoters, those places cater to tourists. Now, you're not necessarily going to have a bad meal. I mean, most food here in Rome is pretty delicious. However, it's not going to be super authentic in the sense that if you want a really good local meal, avoid these types of restaurants. Another thing that tourists will run into in front of the Colosseum, and you see this photo here in the middle. I actually took this photo in the Trastevere neighborhood several years ago. It looked like a gladiator coming home from work with his Samsonite suitcase, and I just got a kick out of that. So these gladiators, quote unquote gladiators, these are gentlemen who dress up as gladiators, and they go down by the Colosseum and they want to take pictures with tourists. Now, there's nothing wrong if you want to have a picture with a gladiator, go for it. Just be aware that they do charge for this as a livelihood of theirs, and there's really no regulated pricing. So if you do want to have a photo, just make sure you agree on the price before you snap that photo so you're not in an uncomfortable situation afterwards. I've heard the going rate is around 10 euros, although I can't verify that because I have not yet gone down and asked them how much they charge, although I should do that. I'm kind of curious. Another thing you'll find, I put this photo here down on the bottom right of this gentleman selling roses. It's a very common thing too that people do try to sell roses to tourists. Sometimes they'll even come up to you and like try to literally put it in your hand and go, hey, it's a gift. Of course, it's not a gift. They're trying to sell it to you. So if you want to avoid an uncomfortable situation there, just simply walk on by. They're used to it. They're used to people turning them down. You don't have to be super courteous and stop and waste your time with them. However, if you want to buy a rose, feel free. Again, the same rules apply in terms of pricing because it's kind of a Wild West situation where each man for himself in terms of how much those cost. I really don't know what they go for. Gelato, of course, I hope that you try our delicious gelato, which is not ice cream. It's this quite different than ice cream. It's a lot lighter and made with a different kind of chemical composition in terms of air and cream and sugar. So if you do see overflowing tubs of gelato, and I guarantee downtown in the historic center, you're going to see this, just know that that is like kind of a trick. What they do is whip a lot of air into the gelato to make it look really kind of fancy and puffy like that. But no real gelataio worth his salt, his or her salt, whatever, have gelato come piling over the edge of the container like that. In fact, if you ever are in a gelato shop and you can't even see the gelato because it's underneath metal lids, that's A++. That kind of gelato is super authentic, and it's quite rare actually to find those kind of shops. So that's also a really good sign that it's the real deal. Another tip off to gelato that's not authentic is obviously if it's super bright, that's probably an artificial color because naturally flavored gelato is not like neon colored, obviously. So that's a way to avoid getting the touristy gelato and getting the more authentic kind. Lastly, just before we finish, I want to give you a couple of more personalized tips special to Rome. Here is the perfect tip for this super August heat. Do not buy plastic water bottles. You don't need to. Just get a refillable bottle. In fact, if you stop into our ItaliaPass lounge, I bet you they'll have a surprise for you there of a refillable water bottle. You can refill them at these fountains that you see here. They're called nasoni, which means big noses because it refers to the spigot there where the water literally comes out continuously. It just cycles through. It comes from a deep underground spring. It's ice cold and you can refill your bottle. I'm even going to give you the link to an app you can put on your smartphone that's going to tell you where the many thousands of these water fountains are located so that any given moment you can know where your nearest water fountain water refill is coming from. A super local a super local tip and trick if you want to try it. If you don't have a water bottle and you're super thirsty, you can literally stick your thumb, plug the water, and there's going to be a little hole there at the top. It's going to jet that water out in an arc, and you can drink it like a water fountain. Just be super careful that there aren't passersby that you're going to shoot with that water, because believe me, I have done that, and it's a little awkward. Oops. Next, I love Villa Borghese. It's super hot right now in Rome, so there's a lot of shade in Villa Borghese. It's a very, very vast and expansive outdoor green park, lots and lots of shade trees. So you can bring a picnic lunch or just take a stroll, get in the shade, rent what's called a risho, which is this bike you see in the photo. They're really fun, family-oriented bikes. They have those ones that you see that have 2 seats, like front, back, and the little carrier in the front for little children, or there's also like 2-seaters. They rent by the hour, pretty reasonable rates. I can't remember what they go for. It's not more than 10, 15 per hour for the smaller sized. And then also take pictures at the Pincho Terrace. That's in the photo there. You can see in the distance, St. Peter's. That Pincho Terrace looks right over Piazza del Popolo. Give you some great panoramic photos. And I'm going to send you in those links I talked about, the Google Maps exact location of that terrace that I'm talking about. Lastly, have an aperitivo. I wonder if you've heard about our aperitivi over here. The Aperol Spritz has become quite iconic in terms of a before dinner drink. So the aperitivo time starts around 6:30. Aprire means to open. So aperitivo is kind of this idea of like opening your stomach before dinner. So you're going to have a before dinner drink. It could be alcoholic or even non-alcoholic. The idea is just to have a fun moment together with your friends before you hit dinner. And in the photo that you see, this is a place that serves such an abundant aperitivo with little snacks that you could probably make a dinner out of it. And I'm going to give you the address to that place too, because it's quite reasonable. And it's in a really nice neighborhood for people watching in nightlife, which is Trastevere. Now I'm going to pass it back to Lorian to tell you about a really cool place that we offer members only.
Yes, so last but not least, this is sort of a more exclusive benefit of being a member with us is that you get to access the Borgia Gallery, which is a gallery that is lower underground and is actually one of the only places in the city where you can access the original ancient Roman street level. And during a visit to the gallery, you'll get to do a beautiful wine tasting. You'll taste some of the best local produce products and have an aperitivo. And you'll get to hear the story behind the gallery, the tunnels around it that link the Borgia Palace to the Tiber River. You'll get a lot of background on the Roman Renaissance. It's really, really a beautiful and unique experience, which I highly recommend you do if you become a member with us. We've had some really great feedback on that.
Okay, so that concludes our presentation. And like I said, I'm gonna email you both the recording of this webinar as well as a link to all the resources that we talked about. And if you don't want to wait to get that, you can just go to the ItaliaPass community, go to italiapass.com, click community on the top headers. And then when you get to the community, in the left sidebar, look for the Ready for Rome orientation, which is under Italy travel planning. And that list is right there available for you right away. Now we're going to open it up. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And we're going to open it up now to your questions, your live questions. And in fact, if you look on the bottom of your screen, there's an icon, the Q&A icon. So you just open that up. And in fact, we already have 3 questions ready to go. So we'll just start going through these and answering them for you. All right. Do you have seminars on Venice? Doug asks. No, sorry, Doug. Just Rome. I'm the Rome expert. However, if you have any questions about Venice, do drop those into the community. And if I don't know the answer, I can certainly research it for you and get back to you. Let's tag team. I'll let Lorian get the next one.
Perfect. So are the taxis big enough to hold big suitcases? Generally, yes. There are regular taxis and you can ask your accommodations or hotel to call one for you, or you can find those taxi stands outside of the stations. But they do hold at least 1 big suitcases per person. And, generally 2 to 3 people is the maximum that you can get into one taxi.
Yeah, it really depends on how many people are in your group, and you can also like get a larger, like a sort of a minivan if you really have a lot of suitcases.
Yes. We do
Uh,
offer those transfers, by the way. You can contact us and we do transfers within Rome for larger groups, and for small groups we have options.
Perfect. Okay, this one says, sorry, I joined a little late. Will you share this recording? Absolutely. I'm going to send an email as long as you registered, which obviously if you have this link and you got into this webinar, it means you registered. I have your email, and give me just enough time to get this recording downloaded and then uploaded, and I will send that to you in an email. So it will be shortly. It will be definitely within a few hours after we finish here. All right, I'll let you do the next one. We'll go back and
Yeah. So are there water fountains also in Venice and Florence? I'm not quite sure.
yeah, I was gonna say not like here in Rome.
Okay.
However, they do have public water fountains. It's just different in every city. Rome is very typical for that particular type of water fountain and just the abundance. They're everywhere. I think it goes back to the history of Rome's like cultural history from ancient Rome, just having water was so important, all these public baths and all these underground springs. So yeah, you'll find some public water fountains, but they're not going to be as abundant as what you'll find here in Rome. However, I will look into that, Mike, because I'm kind of curious now. I wonder if there's an app for those cities as well. I'll look into that. I'll take this one since you did the last one. How available are public restrooms? This is a really good question. You know, this is something people overlook sometimes, but it's important because every European city has kind of a different setup when it comes to public restrooms. So like Amsterdam, for example, you have to pay and they're readily available, but you always have to have 50 cents available. Here in Rome, literally our public restroom situation is the coffee bar. I mean, we do have a very few number of official public restrooms. Like in Termini Station, for example, there's a restroom and you can pay to get in. But honestly, your best bet if you need to use a restroom while you're out and about, duck into a coffee bar, buy a bottle of water or a pack of gum, because that is a courtesy that they expect. I mean, you could ask and use the restroom, but you'd probably get the side eye. The bottle of water is usually just €1, and that's your best bet. Another super pro tip is carry some like little, pocket Kleenex in your purse or backpack, because unfortunately these restrooms are not always supplied with toilet paper. They're they're pretty rugged, so you'll be like a local.
For the weekly transport passes, how do you validate your pass? So that's more,
For
I
the
can
public
tell you what you were
transport.
saying.
Yeah, for the public transport. So it's really easy. The way it works is you can purchase it anytime, and it starts. So like if it's a 24-hour pass, for example, that 24-hour period starts when you first validate it. So when you're saying, how do you validate it? Each bus has a machine where you put the ticket inside and it spits it back out because it stamps it with the validation. Same goes for the metro. If your first ride on that unlimited ride pass is passing through the metro turnstiles, you're going to insert your ticket and it's going to spit it back out. Once you do that, you're good to go. You just put it back in your wallet, and if an inspector comes, you just show them. And from that moment on, it's good for 24 hours. And obviously, if it's an unlimited ride pass for 24 hours, the one metro ride doesn't count. You can have as many metro rides within that 24-hour period as you wish.
Yeah, so Leonardo Express, how are the tickets time specific through Italia Rail? Yes, they are. They're time specific, and we do recommend that you book them ahead of time, especially during high season, just because you might otherwise wait very long at the airport if you book them there. And it kind of gets tricky if you have another train or you want to get to Rome, you're tired. So do book them ahead in advance. And generally, I would leave a buffer of about 1 hour and a half to 2 hours from when you land, to make sure that you get on the right train. And if you miss it, there are ways, there are conditions of the ticket that can be worked around, and you can also work with at the station directly to change your tickets.
Okay, Raven asked, what attractions do you recommend that are kid friendly? I'm actually going to go ahead and research that for you and make a list and put that in the resources section after. because I think it would be better if I took a little bit more time and looked into that for you. Because off of the top of my head, I mean, besides your, your standards, they're unique here for Rome, but the big museums and monuments that you would expect, of course, are all kid friendly. But I think what you're meaning here is something that's specifically tailored for families. And in order to answer that, I want to get a little bit more specific. So I'm gonna research that, and I will put that in a list of resources that I'm going to have in that email that will be sent out to you.
Perfect.
All right.
I was told the Scavi tour requires long pants. Do any other tours, Vatican, etc., the dress code? Yes. So Vatican, you have to have your shoulders, I believe, and knees covered. If I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And that's most, religious establishments in Italy, churches and basilicas, you have to be quite covered to be able to enter them.
So yeah, just to add on to that, definitely in the Vatican, and there are even some like very enterprising business people who, for people who didn't know this rule, they will literally sell you like plastic little
Yes.
like mini pants or whatever that you can wear. But like the easiest thing to do for women is just carry like a shawl, like in your purse or something you can drape over your shoulders. Men, if you have those kind of pants, if that like have zips, you can zip off the lower part. I've seen people do that because it's really hot. You don't want to walk around all day, maybe in long pants. However, that's St. Peter's. It's respectful. It's certainly respectful to do this in all churches. However, don't worry too much if you really want to visit just a church that you're passing by and duck in, and don't panic. You're like, oh gosh, my shoulders aren't covered, and my chances are good that you can go in and no one's going to necessarily kick you out. However, they will not let you into St. Peter's. There's a long line and they do check that. I'm going to let you
Yes.
take this next one because it's specifically about the Italia Pass membership.
Absolutely. So my husband and I are traveling together. So do we each need an Italia pass? So that really depends on how many things you plan on booking. So if you have a lot of train tickets and you're going to book a lot of tours with us, it's certainly interesting to have two memberships, because you can use both of your memberships rebates towards the bookings that you're making. So it can be good in terms of savings, especially since the membership is $99 and you get $100 off of your tours and 10% off on subsequent tours. So if you stack those benefits, which they're stackable is what we call it, if you're together on a tour and you're both members, you can get $100, well, $200 total off of that first tour and 20% on subsequent tours. So it can be interesting depending on the volume that you're booking.
Okay, the next question asks, is it worth investing in a multiple day transit pass in Rome? How well connected and extensive is the transit system? So here's the thing about Rome. It's highly walkable. It's a very small, it's relatively small historic center compared to other large European cities. So honestly, the main points of interest are all walkable. You could literally walk from, let's say, the Colosseum over to Piazza Navona, 25 minutes, from Piazza Navona to the Vatican, another 15, 20 minutes. So you could cover the entire downtown in 45, 60 minutes. Here's the thing, it's really hot right now. So the public transport's probably going to come into play to get you moving around so you're not under the hot sun walking, because you can do a lot of walking, but this heat is pretty oppressive right now. So in terms of the multiple day pass, it really depends on how much you think you're going to be using the public transport system. So kind of maybe the first day you get into town, when you're looking at your itinerary, kind of maybe see how many rides you think you're going to take and whether it's worth it. In terms of the historic center, the public transport system is well connected, but again, it's such a small historic center that you're not going to probably take a ton of rides. In terms of extensive, also something I didn't mention is the subway system is very, very basic here in Rome. It's literally two lines, A and B, and they only cross at one point, termini. They're building a line C for the Jubilee year, and that's going to get into the other parts of the historic center, but the subway's mainly good for the Colosseum and the Vatican. It kind of skirts around the main historic center, like Campo dei Fiori, Piazza Navona. So I would say you can definitely walk, just take heat into consideration. I'll let you take the
We
next.
will be traveling from Rome to Venice. Already purchased our tickets from you. That's great. We are traveling from Venice to Bologna and to San Marino, back to Rome. Can you suggest train info? So if I'm understanding your question correctly, Venice to Bologna is a direct train. There's definitely direct trains, direct high-speed trains connecting both. If you're referring to San Marino outside of Bologna, I would say either a taxi or transfer would be great because it's a smaller area. If that's San Marino close to Rimini, there's a train that you can take to Rimini and then buses that you can take to San Marino or transfers, again, taxis. It's closer. Anytime you're going to a smaller area, if it's close to a big hub or a big train station, it's always better if you have luggage to do taxis or transfers. If you don't have luggage, just a day trip, you can take buses. There's a lot of buses. You just have to kind of look it up ahead of time. I know Maps is very useful for that. You have all of the information for buses on there. But yeah, you can also ask us, of course, either on the community or by emailing us.
Doug asks, what is a good time to visit Trevi Fountain that is not overly crowded? Early mornings. That's a general rule that applies everywhere. One time in Venice, I was getting bothered by a mosquito in my ear at like 5 a.m. and I just couldn't sleep anymore. And I had to get up and I went and walked around the city. I've never seen anything like it. 5 a.m., 6 a.m., you've got the city all to yourself. So it depends on if you want to sleep in or not. But yeah, early mornings are my best recommendation because in the evenings, it's still quite crowded and that's because that's when the sun goes down. So early
Yes.
mornings. We covered
True.
the public restrooms. What are some benefits of rail aid? You want to touch on that really quickly and then we can
Yes.
I can go into more detail later so we don't take up too much time here.
We can probably post the relayed, conditions on the community
Yeah, that
or
probably
send
makes
them through the email because they're very extensive, but generally they're just a protection for if you have to cancel one of your trains and they're included in the membership. So relayed is included with Primo, or you can buy it separately when you buy a train ticket and add it to your train ticket. But it's better to read out all of those benefits.
Yes, agreed. Oh, Doug asks, what is a good pizza place? I think I put my favorite, I'm 99% sure I already put my favorite Pizza al Taglio on my list of resources. It's been my historic favorite for over 20 years and they have kept their same quality. It's right over by the Pantheon. So for Pizza al Taglio, I definitely have a place already listed. It's called Pizzeria Florida, but you'll see it in my list. I'll look up one of my favorite sit-down pizza places as well and throw that in for you.
Yeah. Is it worth purchasing a local phone SIM? As a member, you get a free eSIM. I know we mentioned the membership a lot, but it's just in case you're, considering it. If not, there are a lot of other eSIM providers, and that's in my opinion better than purchasing an actual SIM card. So you just install it on your phone, and then it gives you access to data, which is internet outside of Wi-Fi. So that way you have internet kind of throughout when you're traveling, and you can use Maps, you can use WhatsApp if you're contacting your family. If you have an iPhone, you can use iMessage, that kind of thing. But let us know if you have more questions about that.
Yeah, and to add on, it used to be that I would recommend 100%. I don't recommend that anymore because nowadays everywhere has Wi-Fi, and with these apps, messaging apps like WhatsApp and Telegram, you can connect to Wi-Fi pretty easily and get all your communications without having to purchase a SIM. Where is the best place to buy euros? So I actually don't suggest that you change money. I just don't think it's that economical of an option because they charge really high commissions. What I always recommend people do is just take money out of an ATM, which here is called Bancomat. That's truly the best exchange rate for getting local cash currency. If you need to exchange just a few of your local currency into euros, literally in terms of best place, maybe try stopping into an actual bank. Because I can guarantee that any shop you see that is like the typical money change booth is going to gouge you. Absolutely. So stop into a bank and see, although I doubt that they're going to let you do it because the banks here are pretty strict about only doing transactions for their account holders. However, I have seen it happen. I've helped somebody do that, go into the bank and change money because they're going to give you a better exchange rate.
Yes.
And that kind of also answers this next question. Where do you
Second
recommend
one.
getting more euros? If needed, definitely the bank machines. One note there, bank machines meaning official banks. Don't go to these machines that you're going to see them all over. They're blue and yellow. I think they're called Euronet. They're usually by newsstands. Those aren't affiliated with a local bank. So they charge really high fees. They're convenient because you're going to see them everywhere. But I kid you not, in Rome, there are banks everywhere. Banks in the downtown, all over the place. So, oh, one thing I should probably mention about an ATM, if you're going to go to an ATM, something they have different here that we don't have in the States. Usually the ATMs are located in an inner lobby, not in the actual bank, but you have to go into an inner lobby. And sometimes you have to push a button to get inside there. It'll say apri porta. You have to push a button. You may even need to insert your ATM card into a slot to make the doors open. So if you're wondering, like, I see the ATM, but I don't know how to get in there. It's not locked. There's probably a button that you have to push to get in there and also to get back out. So you don't feel like you're trapped in there. There's going to be another button to open the doors to get out. All right, I'll let you take the next one.
Yeah, for the train tickets we bought on Rail, do we need to do anything beforehand? So it depends. If you bought a high-speed ticket and it clearly says on your electronic ticket, it'll say that it's a Freccia, so Freccia Rossa, Freccia Bianca, Freccia Argento. Those are high-speed trains, and you have how you can tell also is that you have an assigned seat, so assigned seating. So those ones you can just board. The ones that we give you, you can just board the train and show it to the controller on the train if they ask you. The other type of ticket is a regional train ticket. And it does say regional as well on your train number, and there's no assigned seating. It's free seating, but that one you do have to check in for online. So the email that you received with your electronic ticket will have a check-in link. Once you check in, and you do have to check in before boarding the train, that's super important, but before you check in, you can change the date and time. Once you check in, you can only change the time. But all these conditions are in the email that you receive from us when you've bought your ticket.
Okay, Terry asks, how much are the private taxis from the airport to our hotel for 2 people? So there's a fixed rate from the airport for an official taxi. It's 50 euros. And yeah, so it would be 50.
For private transfers, if you
Yeah,
want,
I wasn't
somebody
sure.
to wait for you, and have you take you from the terminal to your hotel, it's about generally $79 US dollars, so a little bit more because it's more, kind of tailored to you, but it depends on preference.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, because maybe that by private taxi, it meant private driver. Do you have to pay extra for having luggage on the train? And are pickpockets an issue on the train?
So for the luggage on the train, you don't have to pay extra, but I highly, highly suggest limiting the amount of luggage you'll have with you, just because you won't maybe be able to have it on the same car if you have too much luggage. And that's when issues happen. You get your luggage stolen, or, you don't want to lose sight of your luggage while you're on the train. So do limit yourself to, I would say, one large suitcase, one personal item if you can. And that way you're sure that you have space for the train, and also show up for the train beforehand so that you can get on the train, not right as it's leaving and everyone's already seated and has placed their luggage in the luggage holders. And I'll let you take maybe the pickpockets. I'm not.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's perfect advice about luggage and pickpockets. I think pickpockets are less of an issue on trains. The reason being is that they're less crowded, and there's a lot of space between one stop and the next. Whereas on a subway, someone gets on, gets off. You see, so it's a question of context. So I've literally never seen a pickpocket on a train. However, not to say that things can't get stolen on trains. So that doesn't mean you have to let your guard down. But I think you want to have a higher guard if you're in a high traffic, quick transit situation. Pickpockets are anywhere and everywhere. So the general rule is just be always aware of your belongings. Oops,
Traveling and train from Rome to Florence, how much time in advance? Generally before at least 20 minutes, if not 25 to 30 minutes before departure, especially for high-speed trains where it's larger stations like Roma Termini, Florence, Firenze, Santa Maria Novella, and in Venice. Just get there, 20, 25 minutes in advance minimum, I would say. To find your platform, get on the train, all that.
All right. Can you recommend a restaurant for a good but reasonable dinner? Yes, I can. And I'm going to recommend a few, and I'm going to put those in the resources list that I'm going to share with you after this.
I don't know how to use WhatsApp as a training. I can get on that. I just want to be able
I can
to.
put a link. Why not? I'll look up a little. I'm sure there's links online to
Of
tutorials about how
course.
to use WhatsApp. Yeah, it's very, very common here in Italy, WhatsApp. I definitely
Yes.
recommend you download that also because probably a lot of your accommodations are going to want you to communicate with them. If you're not staying at hotels, you're doing like Airbnb situations, 99% of the time they're going to want you to have WhatsApp. And it's more convenient for you because if you're connecting with Wi-Fi, you won't have they call it SMS here, the messages.
Yes. Also, maybe like to book, restaurants to reserve a
Also,
table and things like that. They use WhatsApp, so it's great to
yeah.
use them.
What's the public transport rule for a 10-year-old kid? I think, don't quote me on this, I will research this for you. I'm pretty sure 10 and under ride free. And I think 10 is the cutoff. Last time I checked, I could be wrong though, and I will verify that for you.
For trains, it's 14 and under, for
Okay.
most trains. Yeah.
Oh,
But not for public transportation. This is for our trains, just in case someone's wondering.
oh, see, I was assuming so you mean 14 and under ride? No, not that they ride free. On
14 and under are kids fare.
Oh,
They ride
kids fair,
free.
perfect.
Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
that wasn't clear.
Yeah.
14 and under kids fare, and then under 4 years old is free, but you have to share a seat with an adult. So
Check on
that's
your
something.
lap.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah. Toddlers.
4-year-old
Yes.
lap, maybe you want to get a
No,
kid.
that's a lot. So if they're one or two, if you want to just have them on your lap, that's fine. But yeah, that's something to keep in mind.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, public transport doesn't have children's fares, but they just have, I believe it's 10 and under ride free. Where do we access these suggestions? In the community, but again, I'm going to send out an email to you shortly that's going to have the links.
I signed up for the eSIM, and then how do I get it? So if you mean you signed up for the Italia Pass Primo membership, we do have the free eSIM, and you should have received an email with your QR code and how to activate your eSIM and use it in Italy. If you haven't, you can reach out to us. You have the email to reach out to us in your welcome email as a member. Please don't hesitate to do that. We'll resend whatever you need. Yeah, if it's just you got an eSIM, you should have had instructions when you buy the eSIM. Generally, that's how it works.
How do I find my RailPass membership? So if you're an ItaliaPass Primo member, you're going to click on that link you received in your welcome email taking you to the member benefits redemption page. But if you have any questions about that, you can always check with a ItaliaPass Primo specialist. You can email in.
You
However,
can.
yeah, maybe you should take this as well, adding to some of the more comments about.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Oh,
confusion.
sorry, RailPass. It says RailPass.
Yeah.
I was thinking Rail Aid. Okay, so.
Oh, no
Because it
worries.
says RailPass membership, so maybe they're asking about Rail Aid, maybe they're asking about they bought a RailPass. It's hard to know for sure.
Yeah, so how do you find your membership in itself? You're just in our system as a member. You also have a member number, but you don't have to log on to anything. The way you redeem is to buy your services, then reach out to us, and we apply your rebates in forms of refunds. So do contact us in the email that you received, as you said, Shelly, in the welcome email, and we'll explain everything you need there.
Perfect. Okay, do taxis take credit cards? Yes, absolutely. And one thing I didn't mention regards to tipping, you don't have to tip in a taxi. If you're paying by credit card, you're just going to pay the exact amount that's on the taxi meter. If you're paying by cash in a taxi, it's courteous to round up. So if your fare was like $7.40, it's courteous to give $8 and have them keep the change, but they don't expect any more than that. So again, it's not the 20% tip situation you might find elsewhere.
We purchased Vatican Colosseum tours already. Can we get a yes? So if you've already purchased tours with us, with Italia Tours, and you become a member, we can retroactively apply your benefits. That's no problem. And going back to
Take
the
the next
question
one
about
because
traveling.
it's train tickets, the next question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're the train person.
No problem. How far in advance should we? Honestly, as soon as you know when you're going, especially during high seasons, all these big destinations, and Bologna is one of them. Just Venice to Bologna is going to be a high-speed train. They do fill up quite fast. So I would say don't wait till the last minute. I would even say don't even wait for the month before. At least 1 or 2 months before you're going, start looking and booking. Generally the rule to get what you the time that you want to go.
And the other side of that coin is don't try to book too far in advance, right? Although on ItaliaRail, they can purchase in advance even if the schedules haven't come out. Is that correct? How far in advance could a person theoretically purchase? I had a woman on the community the other day that said, I'm coming in 2026 and I'm ready to start planning.
No, so we can technically purchase some of these tickets before they come out, but it depends on what type of route it is. There's no rule. Generally, the high-speed tickets come out about 3 months before to 4 to 5 months, depending, for Florence to Rome, they'll be out 5 months earlier, 4 months earlier. For Bologna to Venice, it might be 3 months because it's less of a big route. For regional tickets, which are the trains that link the smaller regions, so let's say you're going from Florence to Cinque Terre, any of these villages, that's gonna be a local train, and those come out about a month to 2 month out. So for those, they're less urgent for the regional ones, just because they don't have assigned seating. They don't tend to fill up very fast. But for the high speed ones, I would say at least 3 months start looking, because that's when they're going to come out, and then 2 months in you can start booking.
Perfect. And I noticed a few thank yous in the Q&A. You're so very welcome. It is literally a pleasure to interact with all of you here and answer your questions. And nothing left yet, or nothing more for me to say, as we would say in Italian, niente, non c'è anche altro da dire, che nothing else to say except for have a wonderful, wonderful trip. And if you have any questions that come up after this, you are welcome to come over to the community and ask, and we will help you to find the answers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. It's great.
Thanks a lot. Okay, I will send this out to you in your email, and have a wonderful trip. Buon viaggio.
Have a great trip. Bye.
Bye.